This episode is sponsored by Law Tigers New Mexico. Law Tigers New Mexico have been fighting insurance companies on your behalf since 2001. With Law Tigers, you never ride alone.
Welcome to the Rust is Gold Racing Podcast. This is episode 64 on Wednesday, January 19th. I am Stephen Phoenix. I am here with Thaison Hollywood Garcia, and we've got a guest host today again with us, our good buddy. Who do we have, Thaison?
Jimbo Graywolf.
Jimmy.
Doesn't like Jimbo.
He doesn't like Jimbo. You know who told me Jimbo was his grandfather?
But Jimbo's his grandfather's name.
Yeah, but he said Jimbo. So we call him Jimbo. So I said, okay.
Does your grandpa call you Jimbo?
He does, but he's my grandfather.
Oh, it's like that.
Down the way, not too far, an old-time rockabilly coffee bar. Wrecking machine tucked in the back, Elvis singing about a Cadillac. I'm on a BSA, been riding all day. Leathers on, goggles too, triumphant, I don't know what you wanna do. My boys are on Ducatis, happy now all the while. Yeah, these are rockers, it's their style. So let's ride, so let's ride, so let's ride, so let's ride.
Only he can call him Jimbo.
Okay, well, I'm just following Jimmy's grandfather's wishes. If Jimmy's grandfather, OG Jimbo, says call Jimmy Jimbo.
He's not OG Jimbo. He's Jim. I'm Jimmy.
Oh, man.
Oh, man.
He does not like
He doesn't
Jimbo.
like that. I know.
He doesn't like it at
If
all.
OG Jim says call Jimmy Jimbo, I'm calling Jimmy Jimbo.
I'm getting confused now.
Got to follow the wishes.
It's true.
You got to respect your elders, Jimmy.
That's true. How does it feel to be back on the podcast in 2022? It's been a rough couple years.
It feels good. It's nice. Things are going good, I guess, for the most part.
How's it been rough on Jimmy? Do
I don't know. Does Jimmy want to talk about it?
you want to talk about it, Jimmy? What's been rough?
Like what? Like wrecking my bike? Is that what you're talking about?
Well, I didn't want to say it, but
Yeah. Yeah, I wrecked my bike last race of the season, 2021. It was the 2-day motorcycle event, and I wrecked it on the first day on the big track, which was kind of embarrassing, but it was still fun. We had a blast, and running the big track, went out and practiced. Everything felt good. Raced, and then in one of the heat races, I think it was like the second to last lap too.
I think
It was
kind of
coming into turn 2 or between turns 1 and 2. There was just a little patch there where I kept getting a little loose. And then one of the last laps, the rear end of my bike came into my peripherals, to my side view, somewhere where I shouldn't have seen myself. the rear end of my bike anyways. And it just low-sided and then eventually caught and flipped and got lucky. My rear axle adjuster went through my boot and went between two of my toes and crushed my feet. But, I'm fine. It was a good time.
I wouldn't feel bad because there was a lot of wrecks that day, honestly.
a lot of wrecks.
Yeah.
And it was just, to be honest with you, like people were like, oh, crap, like, Jimmy's hurt. But then you
I
got
walked
up
away.
and walked away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
I
people
think-
were kind of just like, oh, well, it's another one tonight. And it had a
Yeah.
weird feeling about that night.
Yeah.
I think it was the adrenaline. I didn't realize like my foot was punctured until I got back to my truck, and I sit down, and I think it was Mike or somebody else was looking at the bike, and they're like, man, there's all kinds of rubber coming off of this bolt sticking out of the axle. And then I looked at my boot and I saw a giant hole, and I freaked out, and I was like, oh shit. I was kind of scared to take my boot off and look at my foot, so I made my son do it.
It was weird because you guys were in the twin class, and I was lined up waiting to go onto the track with the vintage class, and all of a sudden I see everything stop, but I couldn't see what was going on because it was way to south of me. And I was like, oh shit. And then I see the ambulance go, and I'm like, oh shit. And I don't see Thaison come by, and I don't see Jimmy come by. And I'm like, oh shit. It's got to be one of them. It's either Thaison or Jimmy. And then I see Thaison ride by, and I'm like, ah, shit, it's Jimmy.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh crap. It's
like,
like
oh.
you don't know what to think. You don't know how bad
crap,
it is.
it's Jimmy, not Thaison. Why couldn't Thaison have gotten hurt
I
out
would
there?
never ever even think that out of anybody out there because it's too easily,
It happens.
happen,
Yeah.
But I was only saying it was a bad year because I keep seeing your bike back here in the shop and it doesn't get fixed.
Oh, I don't know. I got a lot of projects, and this one's kind of last on the totem pole.
It's almost like you don't want to work on it.
No, I just need a little sponsorship. So if you're listening to this and you want to help somebody's race dreams come true next year. No, it's just I just need to work on it a little bit. And yeah, I bent up the front end. The forks are shot. Gas tank's all smashed in. Handlebars, kind of to be expected, wrecking a bike like that. But I mean, we're 2 seasons in, so it's kind of bound to happen, to get away that many races unscathed is one thing. But no, it's a blast. I'll probably end up fixing it.
So you're gonna race this year, right?
Yeah, probably. I mean, somebody's got to show Thaison how it's done.
Probably.
Probably.
So committed.
Sort of like, prefacing it with maybe. Well, flat track season's going to kick off here in a couple of months. We're getting our bikes ready.
Yep.
And
Jimmy still has a couple months to get it together.
Totally
so
does.
We believe in you.
And so do we. We've got some work to do on our bikes.
Indeed.
But one of our guests tonight is a flat tracker, so I'm looking forward to having that conversation as well.
Sure. Let's bring him on. I think I've been bothering our guests here for probably about a year now. Has it been about a year?
At least. I think it's been longer, actually.
He keeps avoiding us. I don't know why.
I'm shy.
He's a shy guy. Actually, Jimbo here and Gumby go way back. Our next guest. How long ago have you guys known each other? How long ago was it that you guys worked together?
Holy crap, that's 14.
Yeah, right around 2014.
Yeah.
We were working together. I got my first job over at Harley, and I was just a young, dumb
young pup.
And I just happened to come back to working on motorcycles after trying to get an engineering degree. So,
yeah, and we met each other there, and And Gumby actually kind of reintroduced me to flat track bikes. Like, I had seen one before, and it caught my eye just from the way it looked style-wise. I remember being a kid and going into Harley when it was Chicks, and he had a XR 750 sitting over this
orange and black
like sales area, and I didn't know anything about flat track. I didn't know that it was a race bike. I just liked the way that thing looked. Like, it looked wicked. And then I never seen one again in the flesh until I probably met Gumby in around 2014 at Harley again, and he kind of told me he did this racing stuff. And I think one day you pulled up with your trailer and your Honda in the back, your CRF framer, and I saw that thing, and I was just like, man, that is wicked. I hadn't seen anything that had that look since the XR. Like, that image popped back in my head again. Gumby pulled up one day, and he brought his Honda, his CRF framer. It had like the Unicam. I think it's a 450, right? Is the frame nickel plated?
Yeah, it's an old Champion frame.
Yeah, and it's nickel plated, so it's shiny and it's super clean. And it was cool to see those lines again, and it just reminded me of that XR. The tail section, the swoop of the tank, and the steering angle brought in the front tire real close to the frame, and everything that I've seen that you've also built. I mean, I've seen other bikes and stuff. Super clean. Yeah, and I love that. I think there's something to be said, even about a race bike. I've always really admired that in racing, was when guys pick out their own little style or their own little fonts or colors, but also when they keep their bike. I think it's cool to have a race bike that looks super clean. It's almost like all year we would go to the track, and I got asked, I can't even tell you how many times, they said people would see me pull up on the XG, and it was super nice before I wrecked it. And they were like, "You're going to race that bike?" And I'm like, "Yeah, that's what I built it for. It's to race." Yeah. But it's cool to have something that looks good, too. And I really admired that bike. And after that, it kind of lit that little spark where I was like, man, I need to get me something like that.
See? Gumby's lighting sparks and inspiration all over the city of Albuquerque. So our next guest, Jim Langwell, right? Yeah. Also known as Gumby. Everybody knows Gumby in town. In fact, the other day when I went to Indian to go talk to you, I was leaving, and the girls at the front desk were like, "Oh, you know Gumby? We love Gumby. He's so cool. He's such a nice guy."
You're right.
I swear, and everywhere I go, if Gumby's name is mentioned, everybody kind of knows him as like the happy-go-lucky builder.
Yeah,
right?
Thaison showed up over here, and he's like, you know, Gumby's got a little fan club. I was like, he's got a fan club? He's like, yeah. His girls over at Indian were like, hey, we love Gumby.
Oh, thanks. You guys make me blush.
But you do, man. I mean, people like you. You're a fun guy. You
try
always
to be happy.
You always have like a nice kind of chill demeanor about you, you know. And aside from that, like your builds are just freaking stellar. Which we're getting ready to launch one of your bikes, which we'll talk about later in the podcast. But let's get into your backstory. When did you first get into motorcycling and kind of like your history with it?
So I was born in Rapid City, South Dakota. So we grew up in the 60s going to Sturgis and checking out all the scenes there. It's a totally different story. So my dad was always into motorcycles, and he started us riding when we were really young, 4 years old, 5 years old. We were all riding, started racing Sturgis at 8.
Oh, you're talking about flat track. You were racing flat track at 8.
Yeah.
Wow.
And he told me and my brothers that about the time I was about 10, he says, you know, if you're going to be doing this stuff, I'm not going to work on your bikes anymore. You're going to have to do it yourself. So that's basically how we got started in this. It's been motorcycles all my life ever since.
Let me backtrack just for a second, because as soon as you said I was racing Sturgis back in the day at 8 to 10 years old, paint a picture for us. Tell us what Sturgis was like back then, because it's completely different from now.
The track is exactly the same as was. The short track is exactly the same. Rice Cycle had a track east of town, and it was an old school track where they would run the water truck around, and it was filled with used oil. So the oiled tracks, and the track they were amazing when you ride on an oil track. Problem is you come off everything all covered with oil. So bikes, everything. So, but yeah, it was pretty much the Sturgis tracks. Everything was still the same.
So I'm sorry, did you say how long the track was?
Quarters?
It was a short track. I think it was a 3/8.
3/8 track?
Okay. Yeah.
And it was oiled.
No, that was Rice Cycle track east of Rabbit City.
Gotcha.
And what were you riding back then?
XR 75,
Wow.
72.
Cool. Very cool. Very cool bike. And was
Very
it
first one?
And did your dad help you build that out, like derake it?
No, it was just
stock.
It was just stock.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did your brother race as well?
My oldest brother did. Brian never got into the racing part of it. He was just hanging out with us.
Cool.
I mean, we were all riding up in the mountains up there, so it was cool.
What was it like as a kid to get out there in Sturgis and just? I'm sure you're seeing a lot of crowds, a lot of other racers.
Yeah, it was way different because the police would pretty much step out of the city limits, and the Hells Angels had control of the town. And it was a riot. It was a blast. Even being 8-10 years old.
It's an education.
It was definitely an education. Yeah.
What was it like out there on the track for the first couple times?
It was fun. It just ride around, you know.
Sure.
You're so laid back about it. You know, like we're like so excited about flat tracking at our old age, and you're just like, yeah, I ran it, you know, it was Sturgis, you know, I was like an XR 75.
I was a little kid too, so it was, it's a little different.
Yeah.
Didn't really get into the flat track racing that much. I mean, we were there for probably another 2 years before my dad decided to move us to North Carolina. And then in 75, 76, we moved out here. And we've just been riding trails and mountains and dirt bikes ever since.
You've been here a while.
Yeah, long time.
What did you think? Was it a big change to move out here?
It was a big change moving to North Carolina.
Interesting.
Being some northern kid and you go down south in the 70s, it was way different. So still segregation and all that going on.
Wow.
What about the bikes that you were working on? What were you kind of building at that time as a kid?
Oh, I was breaking stuff. I didn't know how to fix anything. It was just trial and error and bust stuff. I remember probably being 16 years old, and I heard about reground cams, so I took my SL 100 cam out and took it to a bench grinder. I thought, yeah, that's going to be cool, and put it back in and immediately bent the valves and broke the valves with golf guides.
Hey, at least you tried, right?
Yeah, now you know.
Yeah, it was just destruction for a long time.
A lot of dirt bikes and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And what about your dad? What was he kind of working on?
He always did automotive, and he just always rode motorcycles and then RVs. So he got us riding in them.
Was he a builder also, or
no, not so much.
Just
built
tinker.
cars.
Sure.
Built cars. Lots and lots of cars.
Did you get involved in any of the motocross or flat track or racing out here when you moved to New Mexico?
Not so much when we moved here. after I finally got out of school and got a job and was able to buy a motorcycle, my first real bike was an 84 CR500, and we started desert racing.
Yeah.
Nice.
And we desert raced probably, up until 98, 97, and it was just all the time, riding 3-4 times a week, and we got pretty good at it. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, had 3 or 4 CR500s from 84, 89,
Wow,
92.
that's cool.
And that was my bike of choice. The last one I was racing was a KX500. So
Big guy. Yeah. What kind of modifications were you doing on those?
everything I could, Penske suspension, port and polish, and chambers, and just as much money as you could throw at them, just because they didn't go fast enough.
And you're doing most of that work yourself, right?
Yeah, always. Yeah. First job was basically 1982. There was a little shop over off of Central called the All Cycle Parts and Accessories, and I got a job there working on bikes. I worked there for 2.5 years, and then after that, 84, went to M&M Honda, and worked there for about 4 years, and then went to Albuquerque Yamaha, and then moved to Las Vegas, Nevada, and worked at a Yamaha dealership there for a couple years. Came back here, worked at the same Yamaha dealership up on Wantabo for 2 years, and then in '93 went to Chick's Harley Davidson. So I was there for 14 years.
So, I mean, that's probably why everybody in town knows you, is you've worked at every single shop.
Just about, yeah. And if I wasn't working at the shops, I was hanging out and talking to people and racing with people. And yeah, it's been motorcycles all my life.
Sure. So when did you move over to the idea of racing as you get older, flat track, and what kind of bikes were you building then?
So 16, 17, I got hooked up with one of the mechanics from M&M Honda. His name was Gene Talley. He spent a lot of time teaching at MMI in Arizona after his motorcycle career here in Albuquerque. And he had a little shop down on South Course, and he had 3 or 4 Bill Canfield fast track frames that we built with me and my brother. We built with 74 CR250 motors in them, and we did a bunch of modifications to them, put Husqvarna heads on them and reed cages and put them into those chrome frames, and basically started racing at Speedway Park there with those and at Raceway. And that was a lot of fun. We hurt ourselves a lot. Didn't ever win anything. I guess early 80s, then there was La Luz Speedway down in Alamogordo, and we went to Gallup. There was a track. So there's a few tracks we used to run around to all the time with Gene Talley's son and Gene Talley and another guy named Bob. So did quite a bit of flat track racing in the early 80s.
And what was that scene like in New Mexico?
It was really big then. I think my first flat track race here in Albuquerque was probably around 78 or 79. Me and a buddy had SL 100s, and we went out to Speedway Park every weekend, and we'd go out and race in the small class, and for some reason we'd always be battling for last lap, and just having a great time. Yeah, what the heck. So
How many guys on the grid would you usually say?
well, there was at least 15, 20 all the time.
Dang.
On all the different classes. I mean, it was big.
That is big.
cool.
Yeah.
That is cool.
We go down to La Luz Speedway in Alamogordo, and the pits would be full. There'd be 60, 70 riders. So it was big.
What's it like for you to see it now?
It's really sad here for me, honestly, because it was so big and so much fun. When Vern Johnson and David Spain would put on races out at Raceway, again, there'd be 40, 50, 60 people out there racing all the time. And it was a lot of fun. And it's just kind of dwindled down. I guess back in 2006, I opened my own shop over off of 2nd Street working on bikes, and I met Brian Tripp, and we got together with him and Vern, and we started building racetracks out here and just kind of getting together and having a little club racing. And it started to get really big, and I don't know what happened. I don't know if they bulldozed the track out at Sandia and started putting us in the little track, and it just kind of all fell apart from there for some reason. So
Were you guys trying to go for like a quarter mile, half mile?
we originally had like a little quarter mile flat track in the parking lot That lasted 3 or 4 years. We had a lot of fun on it. There's a lot of people racing on it. Ended up, after that, we went down to Harvey Kaplan Memorial Raceway, the go-kart track down there. And we had quite a few races down there, too. That was a lot of fun, good turnouts. But it just seemed to, like I say, just all fall apart.
I hate to hear that. I really do, because, man, we always talk about how much fun we have out there racing and how much it's done for us, you know, and I think New Mexico has a really cool kind of like humble spirit about it, right? We don't have the money that California, Oklahoma, Texas, Arizona has. So it's like we have to do it on our own, and it just kind of sucks when you hear a group of people that are trying to do it on their own and everything's kind of against them to get that done.
Yeah.
You know, the vision of it.
You would be surprised at how many flat track bikes are in garages in this town. And there's a lot of them. A lot of old racers, a lot of people are still hanging around doing it.
I would have been surprised like 3 or 4 years ago, but in the last 2 or 3 years that Jimmy and Thaison and I have been more involved in it, they seem to be coming out of the woodwork now, you know, like with the coffee shop, we get people that come up and like, oh, you know, I've got a Bultaco Astro, or I've got, you know, Yamaha, I've got, you know, something that's been sitting around. So like Thaison, it kind of bums me out a little bit to hear you say that, but I'm also a little bit optimistic, hoping that, you know, things are starting to turn around a little bit, you know. I mean, please tell me you've heard a little bit more about it happening than not more recently.
It's been better. I can tell you one thing that would really help is if we could start racing the big track.
Agreed.
You know, if
100% agreed.
That's a lot of fun.
I mean, I would be there every week if we were running the big track. I hate that little track.
Yeah.
My bike just tries to pitch me off every time I come out of 4.
So, speaking of which, tell us about what you're working on. What kind of bikes do you have?
Well, I have my flat tracker, which was a 70s DT 360 Yamaha Champion frame, and nice. I bought it, and it had a CR500 motor in it. Was the reason why I bought it, because I love CR500s, and the thing was just incredibly vibrating, and the handle grips would get 5 inches round, and you couldn't hold on to it. So I decided to take it all apart, and I modded it all out and put the 2002 CRF 450 motor in it. It's got new wheels on it and all that stuff, and put the R6 front end on it. That's a fun bike. It's stock, of course.
Sounds like a wheelie
stock.
machine.
Mm-hmm.
Completely stock. You get, I don't know, there's 15 motorcycles around my house getting worked on now and then. Last summer we did my buddy Paul's Ducati. That was a fun build. And my Kawasaki 650 that I got, somebody gave it to me. I think Rob Palmer gave it to me. It was a 650 4-cylinder air-cooled that somebody turned into a bobber really badly.
That was Palmer's bobber?
Yeah.
I didn't even put two of those together. I didn't put that together until now that you said it. Yeah. That's hilarious.
It was sitting in his backyard forever, and I told him, I said, hey, what are you going to do with that? He says, you're taking it home.
Oh, my gosh.
I said, cool, thanks, Rob.
Well, you mentioned the Ducati and your Kawasaki, but we actually do a YouTube show here at Rust is Gold, our Moto meetups, and we spotlight cool bikes and stuff. And I remember you guys had come up on those bikes, I think it was last month, for one of our events, and our buddy Daniel, who does the show, is just going nuts over those bikes, right? Like
the yellow Ducati was released about a month ago with a chrome tank.
Yeah.
Really cool little scrambler build. And then his Kawasaki's coming up soon. And Daniel was really, we all were impressed, but Daniel was really impressed with like the details of it.
And the color.
The color, the details you have to look into, right? Because there's a lot of like one-off mix match parts that puts that bike together, right? There's not, you're not taking like a Suzuki front end and matching it with a Suzuki frame or Kawasaki or anything. Everything's different.
Right.
So how do you come up?
One of the things I like to do when I build is I like it to not look so custom that you have to actually look at the details to see how much work goes into it. Essentially, that bike started out after I brought it home. The front end got cut off, the back end got cut off. It was a frame cradle and an engine, and I built pretty much everything else on it. It ended up having 2007 R6 forks, swing arm, wheels, brakes, controls, handlebars. That incorporated onto the original frame. I put a 750 kit in it. It's got cams, I don't know, everything else on it was pretty much hand built, all the battery boxes and all that stuff, exhaust. So yeah, it came up pretty cool.
How much time did you put into building that, do you think?
Over the course of a year, probably, I don't know, maybe 60, 70 hours.
That's not a lot. You did that pretty quick.
Yeah.
It's a great looking bike.
Yeah, I have problems with being a bit too energetic and having too many problems. I always say that my OCD gets in the way of my ADD. So, and vice versa.
Any of our listeners that want to see those bikes, just go to our YouTube channel, and it's Moto Meetups at Rust is Gold.
And
Garage.
I'm sure we'll probably have a couple more of Gumby's builds when he brings them over.
yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I mean,
There's one me and my buddy Paul with the Ducati are working on right now. It's top secret, but it's a CB360 that we're
Nice.
putting a Ducati single-sided swing arm on, and conventional CBR 900 forks with a CR 500 motor in it. So
That's pretty wicked.
gonna be all cafe'd.
Nice.
It'll be fun.
Didn't you help JR too build out his Buell?
Yeah.
That's a really cool bike. JR ran it at the track a couple times with us. It's a Buell. What model did it start out?
Lightning.
It was a Lightning?
Yeah, and it
So-
was basically that bike was given to us, and it was every bolt and everything on it was just broken. It was
Yeah, I
just
remember, and I think you told me the countershaft nut was welded on or
welded onto
something.
the shaft.
It was a horrible.
Yeah,
It was a piece to start with.
They had conduit for the rear motor mounts on the swing arm instead of having
Yeah.
the rubber isolators on it.
But it looks really cool now. Like the
really
frame's
nice.
powder coated, all blue.
Yeah.
It has an Indian tank that he told me you guys cut up
Well,
and welded.
It started out as a scout tank, and we cut
yeah.
the top of it off and then built all the rest of it on it.
But
So,
it looks sharp. Like it's a cool looking Buell, real short wheelbase.
Yeah.
He ran it on the big track and was just smoking
Fast.
everything.
Fast.
It was fun. It's cool. It's a different looking bike. You look at it and you're like, how come that thing looks like it has a Sportster engine, but it has like the footprint of a sport bike, but there's a lot of stuff going on there, and it's really cool to. I kind of seen it because I'd pop into the shop every once in a while, and it was just kind of in the corner, like whatever. And then it was cool this summer to see JR on it, just hauling ass down the straight on it, and I was like, man, that's cool.
fast.
But
Yeah.
it's just
I think
it's a
one of
cool
the-
testament to something somebody was gonna throw away, or they were like whatever about it, and they resurrected it, gave this bike a whole new life, and we're out there racing it, like kicking ass.
One of my coolest, I think so. One of the things I think is the coolest on that bike is the exhaust. We
Yeah.
put an old cherry bomb off of eBay on it.
That's awesome.
And it comes under the bottom, underneath the engine.
Yeah,
Oh my
I saw
gosh.
And it just has a little pipe kicked out. It's a pretty cool bike.
Yeah.
Well, you're obviously like super mechanically inclined, and you're a great builder and fabricator, and you were working at Harley Davidson for a number of years in Albuquerque, right? Like 14 years, I think
14
you
years,
said.
yep.
How did you end up at Indian?
So after I left the Harley shop, I opened my own shop for 4.5 years, and I just absolutely couldn't stand it. It about killed me, the stress. I just couldn't deal with it. People that own their own businesses, as you guys, I just commend you. It takes so much effort and integrity to do it. So, but here nor there, I closed the shop down, and all of my life, I thought, when I got out of high school, I decided I was going to get an engineering degree, and I wanted to work for research and development, Honda research and development. And so I went down to UNM, and I signed up for the engineering course, and I got a job at M&M Honda for the summer. Well, 22 years later, my summer ended. And I thought, well, I guess now's the time. So I closed my shop down, and I sold off all my equipment, and I started to go to school for an engineering degree. And I went to C&M, and I made it through 3.5 years of a 2-year degree. So, and I got my pre-engineering degree. And I had a small job internship at Sandia Labs, and I just absolutely hated it. And I was the worst engineer ever. I can't do math. It's terrible. So
That could be a problem.
yeah. So I decided, well, I'm going back to what I love. And I got a job back at Thunderbird just because it was quick and easy. I knew I could get a job there. And lasted a year. And it was good. I mean, they kept me busy and they worked us hard. And Mike Gayor came to me with the opportunity to come over and go to work for him, be the mechanic.
This is where you met Jimmy Vigil, though, right? At
young
Thunderbird.
Jimmy Vigil.
Jimmy Vigil.
Young.
At Thunderbird.
Yes. Yeah. So that was a good time. And like I say, the opportunity came up to be the mechanic at Indian of Albuquerque, and I jumped on it because it was brand new brand, brand new dealership, brand new everything. So we were super excited about all that.
Has it lived up to your
It
expectations?
has. The motorcycles are incredible. The dealership is phenomenal. They do a great job. Try and keep all of the old family dealership atmosphere to the place.
That's cool.
Customer appreciation and customer service is what's key for us. So we work really hard to try and keep everybody happy.
Yeah.
And it's kind of the old way that Chick taught us how to run a dealership.
Really?
So yeah, keep the big corporation out of it.
That's a good way to do it. I mean, honestly, but when I was really impressed when Indian did their demo here at the coffee shop. So they brought their demo truck and they brought out, what was it, like 12 bikes, 8 to 12 bikes, something like that at a given time. And they basically just told Steve and I, here are the keys.
Yeah.
Take what you want. And I was like, okay. Because we've done demos here plenty of times, and no one's like, just take them and tell us what you think. So they gave us, a couple of the bikes. You're on the bobber.
Yeah, we
Scout
rode
bobber.
everything. I was on the Scout when we did our long
For
ride.
the most part.
Yeah.
We all tried different bikes. But
Yeah.
he was on the Scout. Daniel was mostly on the FTR.
Yeah.
And we all took turns, and then I was on the Chieftain.
Yeah.
What do you call that? Like the Chieftain.
It's the big one.
The bagger, basically.
Yeah, it's not the big bagger, but it's
Mid-size.
Yeah. Right.
And I was really impressed overall with the whole brand from that experience, but I was really impressed with how smooth those motors were.
Yeah.
And I'm talking like, if I had to go to the bagger level from having Harleys and from having that race Harley, the 883, when you're doing a long distance ride and you want something smooth that's not going to beat the heck out of your hands or your back or whatever, but that thing was so smooth that I could see myself taking that for 12 hours a day.
Tyson was loving it.
I was.
Nice.
Tyson's like a cafe racer, right? He rides those kind of bikes and dirt bikes and scramblers. And he was on this Chieftain, and he was like all at home.
Well,
Like, seriously,
one of the
he was just
things that I've
cruising.
noticed on riding down the road, you're sitting there riding, cruising, and you say, wow, I can see myself on this.
Sure.
This is cool.
and I can't say that with a lot of like baggers.
No,
I mean,
right.
honestly, I'm not trying to bag on baggers, as bad as that sounds, but like it was very smooth. It was a Cadillac. It felt like a smooth Cadillac, and I don't think Indian really gets the credit for how smooth those motors are.
Yeah.
That I think they deserve, and that's only the bagger of the shirt.
Right.
The FTR.
The other thing that's really
fast as
incredible.
heck.
The other thing that's really incredible, going from X brand to Indian, is the suspension on them is just phenomenal. Mm-hmm. You can run over railroad tracks and being used to the other things, and all of a sudden you're going, whoa, I didn't even feel that. So
I was blown away by the FTR. When we
FTR
finally
is
got to ride
trouble.
it, I was like, wow.
It's trouble. I
This
get
is
on
a
them.
bike.
I get
Yeah.
on it. I get on it and I ride it like it's a CR500. Honestly, on the street,
Yeah.
sideways through corners and wheelies and stoppies, and it's just it's intense.
When
It's
I was
so much fun.
When
Yeah,
I was
it's
riding
an
that
amazing
bike too, and
bike.
we were, on a long stretch, and I think I was getting up to like 80 or 90 just within a second or two. I was thinking to myself, I can't imagine going this fast on this bike on a flat track.
Yeah.
Like, how scary would that be? Taking that thing sideways at like 90, and it's so fast. It goes like that fast within seconds.
They're so confidence inspiring just riding them. Even I can flat track them on the street.
Yeah.
Just through around corners on them. It's just, they're incredible. They handle so well.
Were you a little bummed when they went to a smaller tire in the front end?
It actually made the bike a better street bike.
Sure.
It actually handles a little bit better. It's not so top heavy. Brought it down a little bit. So I think they did a good job with that.
Doesn't look as cool.
It does not.
No, it doesn't.
When I saw that little tire, I was like,
And it-
really?
And
More tire options, though, I think.
I think I can kind of tell you from experience, but I don't know if I should say it, but it doesn't work as well in the dirt as the 19-inch wheels.
Yeah, I wouldn't imagine so.
On a street tire, Street 17.
Little tiny 17.
But yeah, I mean, it was cool, man. I was really impressed,
Yeah.
and I think
We were super impressed with Indian because
Yeah,
after the truck left, right, Tyson and I were just kind of waving goodbye, kind of sad because it was like we had a great time that weekend.
yeah.
I can't remember her name. I feel terrible, but when she was here with the demo bike, with the truck,
I'm
it
sorry,
was
I don't
awesome.
remember either.
We'll
I only
figure
met her
that
that
out
one time.
as we go. Yeah.
She's a corporate girl and just came through.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's fun.
And I think there's a different kind of like sentimentality towards Indian from their loyal fanship versus Harley.
Oh, sure.
You know, not to like cause a divide between Harley and Indian, but you can tell there's a difference there.
There is. There
You
is.
know.
Yeah.
And they've treated you well over the years.
Absolutely perfect. Yeah. I'll be there till the day I die, probably. Probably die at my toolbox.
Did it feel weird for you as you moved over to Indian? Did you have any hair raised on the back of your neck or anything like that?
None.
Yeah.
No, just jump in.
Sure.
You know, it's kind of been like the way I do everything is just jump feet first.
Right.
Well, they do some things over there that a lot of dealerships don't do, right? Like you've got a couple of programs there that are super cool.
They do. They have a really neat rental program that works out really well for people. So I don't think anybody in town's doing that right now.
How does that work?
I'm not sure the logistics of it, but I know people call and they rent a motorcycle and they take it out and ride it. So
That's cool.
Yeah, that's super cool.
I know we have
they have. I know you can do hourly rentals or daily rentals or weekly rentals. So
that's cool. I know we were talking about doing a ride out to Bisbee. It'd be kind of cool to get a couple baggers and take them down there.
Yeah.
What do they have in the lineup?
All of them.
All of them. Every
Yep.
single one.
Yep.
FTRs to baggers.
FTR, full dressers. You know.
I don't think
The
I'd ride an
Roadmaster.
FTR to Bisbee.
No.
Yeah, you could the Roadmaster or the FTRs. You get about 110 miles out of a tank of gas.
Yeah.
You'll be stopping quite a bit.
That's when it kind of dawned on me because I went from the bagger to the FTR on
Yeah.
that long stretch and then back to the bagger. And I was
Back to
like,
the
oh,
Chieftain?
God, dude,
Yeah.
never, dude.
Yeah.
Never again.
So
I
you
said,
take
makes
the
sense.
Chieftain down to Bisbee?
Oh, totally. You up for it?
I'm down, man, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. I was super impressed. I think they're great bikes.
Yeah,
One of
they've done a really nice job with them.
One of the cool things I think I like about Gumby, aside from his builds, is that he's like a motorcyclist, right? And I think that's what we talk about a lot on
Right.
this podcast is like, if you're into racing, if you're into motocross, flat track, whatever, you start to understand that a motorcycle is a motorcycle is a motorcycle, right?
Motorcycle's a motorcycle. I have appreciation for all of them,
For
every
sure.
one of them.
Yeah.
So
And it
because I love
shows.
'em.
It shows with his builds. He's
Yeah.
a phenomenal builder. You know, I
Thank
think
you.
it's pretty rare. I don't have the foresight to look at a bike and say, okay, I can match all these different pieces to make one funnel.
So my latest build in my garage that I've been working on is I found a 1972 Honda N600 car. It's a little hatchback. And they came with the 600cc air-cooled twin-cylinder motorcycle motor up front wheel drive. And I took it, yanked all that out, cut the frame all out of it, and I'm putting an RC51 Honda engine in it and made it rear-wheel drive. So that's going to be went from about 25 horsepower up to 130.
Oh my God.
So
it's
that's
gonna be a good
Honda's
time.
V4, right?
It's a V-twin. It's a
V-twin?
It's a
It's not a
11,000 RPM V-twin.
Okay, I thought that was the 4-cylinder gear-driven cams.
They are gear-driven cams.
Those engines sound pretty cool.
Basically, in 2000, 2003, 2004, Honda decided to go take Ducati on, and they put Nicky Hayden on this bike, and they won the championship with it.
Yeah, I remember
So-
that. That's cool.
And they made a few production bikes, and it even has HRC stamped on the cases, and it's pretty incredible motorcycles.
Yeah,
That's wicked.
that is cool.
So I think a little Honda car with 11,000 RPM is going to sound kind of wicked.
That'll be cool.
Any plans to build any more flat track bikes?
I'm working on one right now for JR. I'm building the frame for a XR 500 motor.
Nice.
Hopefully we'll be getting that going in the next couple months. I got basically the chassis or the cradle and the backbone built for it. So that's coming along.
Awesome.
We just finished my brother's champion framed YZ 400. That'll be, I think he tried it at one time last year, and we still had some ignition problems for it. But yeah, we're going to try and get out this year a little bit more. I mean, I did a lot of surgeries and stuff last year to try and heal up from all the desert racing, and I couldn't have the opportunity to race. But I think I'm going to be out there this year.
Do you
Try
think
and
you'll
make
try and
all-
race?
Me, I'm definitely going
Awesome.
to try and be there.
That's great.
Take a couple laps on the short track.
Yeah, I would like to do the big one. But
Yeah, I'm sure we can make something happen, right, Steve?
Oh, sure, Thaison. We'll just make it happen.
Well, we look forward to seeing you out there, man. We
Thanks.
really do. your wealth of knowledge, and I wish I had half of your talent.
Oh my gosh. I just love talking to Gumby.
Yeah.
Every time I talk to him, he's just so calm,
Sure.
knowledgeable and friendly. It's just he's a fun guy to talk to.
Make me blush.
Yeah. We know why the girls like you now.
Well, we can't wait to also see some of those other bikes that you bring out.
Yeah, it'd be fun.
And I know Indian's got plans for a couple bikes coming out here in the future.
Yep.
So keep us informed on that.
We will.
Yeah,
Definitely.
I'd like to see that.
Yeah, we'll bring you back for that.
I'll come back for it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Jimbo, cool seeing Gumby again. Your old boss.
Yeah, it was cool.
Nah, we're equals.
We worked together.
We're equals.
It was cool. It was cool to know him then and then still know him now and think about where I was then versus where I am now.
Yeah, I'm pretty proud of you,
when
Jimmy.
he talks about,
Doing good.
when you asked him how long he's been working on stuff and he was just destroying shit. When I met him, I was still just destroying shit. I was still learning. Not that I know it all now, because I sure as hell don't, but it's cool to have learned a lot. And and like you guys were saying, Gumby's calm disposition to him. I remember when I was building my XG, and it took a lot of work and stuff I had never done before, but I was just learning as I go, and I was kind of overcomplicating it. I have a tendency I'm a very detail-oriented person too, and I start thinking about all these other little. And I remember I went over one day and I was asking him about, some suspension questions and some stuff about the front end, and I was like, man, I need to get this rake pulled in so I can race this bike and blah blah blah. And he just kind of looked at me and was like, you're racing this little dust bowl back here in the West Mesa. Like, he didn't say it in those words, but he put it to me in a way where I was like, I just need to get on the track. I don't need to have this dialed and that and this and that to have a good time.
Right.
Let's go riding.
Just go ride it. So the same could be said to anybody else out there. Oh, I want a flat track, or I want to build this or do that. It's like, you don't have to know how to do it. You don't have to worry about how anybody else does it, or if you're doing this the right way or wrong. You just do it in whatever way you can and whatever means you have at the time. And then once you do it, it's a blast. I've raced the bike 2 seasons in a row, and we've had a blast. We went down to El Paso. We've had fun out in the dirt. And if I were waiting to get the geometry right or this or that, I'm trying to take a bike that shouldn't even be on the track anyways and race it. But he helped bring me back to just race it, just have some fun. And, that was a cool thing.
Really appreciate. I really enjoy when people come to me and ask for help, and I'll try and help anybody I can with any of this stuff. Just because it's fun, and we need to get more people doing it.
Absolutely.
Sure. Yeah. Amen.
Yeah. Well, cool, man. Thanks for coming out.
Thank you for having me.
We know you don't like doing this kind of thing,
okay.
so thanks for joining us, man.
Thanks.
Is there any way that people can get a hold of you, or?
Yeah, I'm at the Indian store. Come see me.
Just come ask for Gumby.
Yeah. No,
Cool.
get me out of the back.
Well, thanks, man. We appreciate
thank
it.
you, guys.
Honestly,
Thanks, Gumby.
Appreciate you.
Thank you.
I don't know how many times you can say it, but Gumby's just a nice guy.
super cool.
Just a nice guy. I like him a lot.
Yeah. It's really cool. Like, I'm always fascinated by a builder that can just mix match pieces like that. I can't see that far ahead.
Yeah.
We've had a lot of builders on the show, and there's a few that can kind of do that, but it takes a special kind of gift, I think, to see a bike and just see the frame and the motor and say, okay, all this other stuff I can get rid of, and I'm going to mix match all this together.
And do it
Frankenstein.
right.
And make it look pretty.
Yeah, because you've seen people take a bunch of shit and slap it together, and it's like, ugh.
Yeah, you could tell it's 5 different bikes.
Right.
It looks dangerous,
Yeah,
right?
for
And
sure.
when he does it, it looks like purpose built. You know what I mean? Straight from the factory in a weird way, which is cool. He's an awesome dude. So
Well, you were a young kid when you started working with him, right? I mean, you're still young, but you were a pretty young guy when you
I
were
was
working.
probably like 18 or 18, 19 when I started working for Harley, and Gumby was a tech there, and he was obviously one of the senior guys. Like he worked for Harley 14 years before that.
Did you learn some stuff from him? I mean, can you say?
Yeah, I'm sure I did. I'm sure I asked him plenty of questions, and he helped me out of some jams. And there was a lot of guys there that helped teach me a lot of stuff. There's a lot more older guys around around at that time, and I feel like a lot of those guys are starting to kind of phase out of the dealership life. They're getting too old to deal with this or that, or they've chosen different paths or whatever. So it's pretty cool to tap into that knowledge base. He knows a lot of the legacy stuff, some of the older stuff, and some of that stuff's not, there's a lot of places that won't work on certain bikes past a certain year, and I know Indian works on a lot of different stuff too. I think metrics and stuff, they work on different stuff, and that keeps you sharp when you're working on things, you know.
Yeah.
And
well, you can tell Gumby can work on anything.
Oh yeah.
I mean,
for
you
sure.
could see it. He's got that mind for it.
Totally.
Yeah.
Well, it was a cool podcast. I'm glad we finally got him on.
Yeah, and again, look at our YouTube channel. A couple of his builds are coming up. That YouTube channel, Russ's Gold Coffee or Russ's Gold Coffee and Garage, Russ's Gold Racing, all of those. A lot of his builds are going to be featured on these episodes. So if you want to see the bikes that we're talking about, the first one was that yellow Ducati. You can see that, and then his Kawasaki's coming up next. So
cool.
One of the new shirt lineups, which I'm super stoked on, Steve and I worked on this for a while, is our kind of heritage brand, which is kind of like a homage to like an old school 30s, 40 kind of like race brand. So it has the Russ's Gold logo on these new race shirts that we have. I really dig that. That's one of my favorite logos. We also have our old school Russ's Gold Roasters kind of crew neck sweatshirt and long sleeve tee. Once those are gone, they're going to be gone for the season because we'll start wrapping those up and getting onto the t-shirts.
Right.
So if you want that logo, you got to come into the shop and pick those up. And speaking of which, I want to give a shout out to our hometown hero, Jason Anderson, racing for the Kawasaki team. He took first place Supercross race this last weekend.
Yeah.
Super rad, 450 class. Guy killed it right off the gate. Dude was just on fire. And actually the last race at Anaheim, he was in a pretty good position too. He was pulling for third and got cut off by Bam Bam. And I'm stoked to see what he does this season. And if New Mexico's not exactly giving him the props that he deserves, we're going to do it here at the shop.
For sure.
You watch that last race, Steve?
I did, man. And, he fought his way back from third, but he stayed on it, and he, man, it was intense watching him pull all the way up. And then halfway through the race, he had the lead, and he wasn't going to lose it. So it was cool to watch him.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's cool to see him move from the Husky to the Kawasaki this year.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And I think he's found a kind of a better platform for him. So I'm excited to see what he does this season.
He looked comfortable.
Yeah, I think it's cool. Like, I don't know. When I first started watching motocross and stuff, like I didn't really think or know of anybody from New Mexico that was competing at that level.
Right.
And he's it, man. He's doing it for New Mexico. So
yep. He's our hometown guy, man.
He is.
Support the home team.
Exactly. Go back, watch these races. If you're from New Mexico and you haven't been watching motocross lately, give it a look.
Cool. Also, give a look to our YouTube channel. We've got a lot of videos and a lot of content coming over the next couple months. So if you like seeing really cool quality motorcycle builds, if you like hot rods and cars and trucks, Jimmy's grandfather has a couple of builds that are going to be on our Moto, our Cars and Coffee Rolling with Rig show, and we just have a lot of cool stuff, including our web series. That's something you're going to want to check out as well. Thanks for following us on our Instagram and social media pages. Thanks for listening to the podcast. We really appreciate it. Our official podcast page is rustisgoldracing.com. Our official coffee website is rustisgoldcoffee.com. If you'd like to support our Patreon, check out Patreon at rustisgoldracing and rustisgoldcoffee. We could use the support to maintain our hosting. It just really helps us out. So we appreciate all of our customers and listeners. And Anderson, take the next one. We'll see you on the next ride.
Down the way, not too far, an old-time rockabilly coffee bar. Wrecking machine tucked in the back, Elvis singing about a Cadillac. I'm on a BSA, been riding all day. Leather's on, goggles too, triumphant, I don't know what you wanna do. My baby's on a Vincent, has been for quite a while. She said it's rocking just her style. So let's ride, so let's ride, so let's ride. Come on, turn up, I got lovely Kims. American rocker as a matter of fact.